question when you're doing an intake, the client keeps going over a particular issue like a broken record, not adding new information. How do you get them back on track smoothly? And my response was, I don't care if you do it smoothly, you got to do it. And if it comes off as being a little abrasive, sometimes you have to be, because you have to show your client who's running the show. If you don't, they're going to lose respect for you, and you're not going to get the success you should. Sometimes they're even testing you. They want to see how far they can go running things, and when you're going to intervene and get them on track. Here's what happens if you don't. They're going to leave the session and go, I didn't get anything out of that. And they're never going to think it's their fault. It's going to be your fault. And in reality, there'd be a lot of truth in that, because you're the one that's supposed to be dictating the nature of the session. So what I'll do when I started to say the comfort zone was one thing. The other thing is it tells me if they're doing that you're either not asking the right questions or you're not holding their feet to the fire when you ask them a question.
I think I didn't hold this lady's feet to the fire. This is actually the lady I talk about later in the stuff I sent you, the lady who was the cancer patient with the Gerson thing.
Yeah. That
lady.
All right. Well, my answer would remain the same regardless.
Well, yeah.
I generally, when somebody does that, I'll say, we've got an hour or 2 hours if it's a first session or whatever it is. And if we keep going back over the same stuff, I hear you on that. I understand what you're saying, but it's time to move on. We're getting stuck in this, and it's getting circular. We're not getting anywhere. We need to make some progress.
Okay. I think holding people's feet to the fire and being a little bit more willing to be even abrasive is a weak point for me. And I think it plays into some of the stuff that we're going to do some therapy on for me when I visit you, just as a side note, a sidebar.
All right. That sounds good. So one more step to that. They may still try to go back and test you. They may go back to the same thing. I'll just say, no. We already covered that. I told you we're not going over it again. Let's move forward. And I just get them moving forward. I got places to go, people to see, things to do. I don't have time to waste. So I'm moving forward. All right. Next question kind of follows suit with this, but I want you to give me an example. How do you handle a client who is constantly looking for ways to challenge your authority and try to control you and the session?
Okay. This is a client that we talked about some time ago. A lady who came in for problems managing her anger. And this was a woman who was constantly going through boyfriend after boyfriend after boyfriend and put out sort of a glamour, if you will, a persona of being very cool and very sexy and very in control and telling people what to do. And so my persona is somewhat different from that. And I think she saw me as sort of a challenge. She wanted to see how much she could push me and how much she could control me and how much she could try to catch me off guard with running the session. And I think she was surprised by how much I didn't let her get away with that.
Give me an example of some of the things that she did that that made you initially aware that she was trying to do this. Can you think of anything? I know it probably was a little bit a little bit of time has passed, but just generally.
Part of it was her body language. The only thing that's coming to the top of my mind immediately is I had a small heater running, and she said, "Oh, we don't need your white noise machine." I said, "That's a heater." But, you know, there was just a lot of assumption of, you know, already knowing what was going to go on. And she was one of the people that said, "Well, you know, I'm really not sure that this can work, and, you know, and you're just going to get out your pocket watch and wave it in front of me and stuff, aren't you?" And I said, "No, I don't do that. I don't work that way. Hypnosis doesn't work. You know, I don't do this." So,
Well, see, what you did right then is you just defended yourself,
yeah,
and I would not do that. I don't
okay,
defend myself. It's my office. I'm the professional. I'm the authority on the subject. You came to me. I didn't come and drag you out of your house and throw you in my chair. So I've got nothing to defend. So if somebody said to me, "We really don't need your white noise machine," whether it was a heater or whatever it was, I would have probably said, "I like it. Is it annoying you?" And if she said yes, I'd say, "Well, I'll put something else on." And I would just change. I wouldn't turn it off, because I'm not going to let her dictate what's going on in my office. But I would acknowledge that I want to know if that particular sound is abrasive to her. That acknowledges what she said, but it doesn't give her control. If she said to me, "Really not sure if this is going to work," even a wave a watch and all of that stuff, I would have said, "You seem like a smart lady to me. I don't think you'd be stupid enough to come and sit here if you didn't think it would work. Am I right or wrong?"
can you help me become more like you?
I'm not going to defend myself. Once you defend yourself, you're in a sense acknowledging that you have something to defend.
You're right. I hadn't thought of it that way.
Somebody like that who seems to have an anger issue. I wasn't there. I'm just going on what you told me. But that's fear and usually fear. It could be fear and frustration. So what she's essentially telling you is she's a very fearful person. She's like a dog who's a fear biter. So she's gonna try to get you and get to you before you can get to her. She's fearful.
Okay, I did get that, watching her, that was exactly what she was doing.
So here's what I think is a mistake that people make in that particular scenario. They try to comfort the person or come off in a more passive way so that they don't agitate the person. I have a different theory on that. I think it's just like kids who push their parents to see what the limits are. The child actually wants the parent to set good boundaries. And they'll push as hard as they can until they reach a point where that parent sets boundaries. That helps them to feel safe. So when you're working with a client, I would suggest in most cases the same thing. They want to see that you're setting boundaries and that you know what you're doing and that you're not going to take any crap from them. They're not going to be able to push your buttons. I've told people in the past, look, if you have concerns about this working or concerns about me or concerns about hypnotherapy or anything, and you're not up to doing the work, I'll give you your money back and you can go home. That way it doesn't waste your time and my time. If you want to do the work, I'm here. Your choice. What do you want? You get to pick.
Okay. I'm just writing down some of this stuff. I think one of the things that I'm learning from working with some of these people, I mean, some people, there's no problem, it's fine, it's great. But, you know, the cases I've given you are the ones where it wasn't so great. And I think one of the things I've learned from the compliance thing is that there's some stuff I need to work on in me, and how people.
And whenever there's a problem, problem or issue, it always starts inside of you or me or whoever it is. The first place we have to fix everything is in here. So that's not uncommon, and there's nothing wrong with that, and you shouldn't feel in any way bad about that. That's just life. The big problem is when people don't recognize that, and they think the problem's somebody else, and they got to change somebody else.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, in my own life, I've had trouble with feeling like I was a pushover, or, you know, not being good at confronting people. I would either just not deal with them or just walk away, or, you know, and there are, of course, reasons for that, but I think I need to change the way I deal with people now that I'm a therapist, particularly, and be more willing to be in your face and say, this is how it's going to be, like you are.
When you change your perception, your behavioral shifts. See, I look at it like this. With my children, they live in a benevolent dictatorship. They don't live in a democracy. And I make no bones about that, because my wife and I pay the bills. We take care of the house. It's our responsibility. With responsibility comes power, and with power comes responsibility. So I set the boundaries that I think are right for them, because my belief in parenting is that my job is to work myself out of a job. My job is to make them so strong and independent that if something happened to me, they're fine. They can take care of themselves. Well, so that idea of working yourself out of a job is the same thing I believe in doing as a therapist. With my kids, if they get mad at me once in a while, so be it. I don't give a rat's patootie if they get mad at me. I'm going to do the right thing. With a patient, I follow that same philosophy. I don't look at it like I'm getting in their face or competing with them or trying to stand up to them. I look at it in this fashion. They came to me for help. I'm the authority, not them. If they could have solved the problem themselves, they would have done it by now. And I've had people just this past couple of weeks, there's been 2 or 3 people that have been in therapy for years with other people, who I turned them around in a matter of a few sessions. And that happens because I'm going to do what I've been trained to do in the way I know is best to do it to help them. I'm not doing it to them, I'm doing it for them. So just like when you parent and you say, okay, you might get mad at me, you're not going to like this, but you ain't going to that party Friday night because X, Y, and Z. But Dad, I didn't say you like it.
Okay.
But you're living under my roof, you're living by my rules, period.
Okay.
If we can talk about it, yeah, we can talk about it, but you don't get a vote. So with patients, I look at it the same way. I would be remiss in my responsibility and in my obligation to them if I did not hold their feet to the fire and keep them on the right path so that they could have success. So I'm not competing with them. I'm not standing up to them. I'm not challenging them. I'm just keeping them on track to success. And I think when you look at it that way, you get a whole different perspective of what the behavior you're executing demonstrates and accomplishes.
Okay.
Now, how you look at something is so much a part of how successful you are in dealing with it. It's like I tell my Kung Fu students that if somebody throws a punch at you, instead of going, "Oh my God, a punch," if you say, "Thank you for giving me your arm," it's a whole different outlook at that point. So please, give me your arm. Bring it over. So next, you have a client who wants to pay one session at a time. Whose office is it?
Mine.
Oh, so you have an office policy, that's it. Take it or leave it. It's not negotiable.
So you always sell things in blocks?
The only time I don't is if somebody's just coming back for reinforcement. I have a martial arts competitor who comes to me for, he's quite good. He's still travels all around the world competing and stuff. And every time before an event, he comes to me just for what we call a booster shot. And I'll do one session for that. But if somebody comes to me with an issue, it's just not happening for a number of reasons. And I'll give you a concrete, specific example. I had a therapist working in my office. She was very, very good. A lot of talent as a therapist. Probably, she's been in practice now for many years, but her first couple years she worked out of my office. And when she first came, well, I'll give you two different things that happened. Let me more closely address the first one. Woman called and she was really obnoxious. She was older woman, and I think if I remember right, she was 72 or 73, something like that. And she was abrasive, obnoxious, demanding. And my practice has always done really, really well. So I didn't really need any new patients. So I'm saying to myself, do I really want this? You know what? I'm going to give her to this other therapist. So I hooked this person up with the woman working at my office. And I had told her, we had this debate many times about she always had done just one session. I said, no, you got to do a program. So we did a program with this woman. After the first session, it was for smoke cessation. She was smoking 3 packs a day. 3 packs a day.
That's a lot.
After the first session, 2 or 3 days went by. I get a phone call from this young lady, and she says, so-and-so called me and she wants her money back. She said it didn't work. I said, well, what are you talking about? It didn't work. I need more details. Didn't work could mean a lot of things. She said, well, that's what I didn't understand either, because she's only had 2 or 3 cigarettes since the session. So I said, okay, it worked. It just didn't snap her right to 0 on the first session. You have to maintain rapport with her, so blame it on me. Tell her that she purchased a program, not a session. We don't give refunds. Clearly states that in the paperwork, that her best option is just to come in, finish the sessions, because it is a program, and she really can't make that determination after one session. So that's what she did. And at the end of the 3-session program, the woman was no longer smoking. Now, if we had just said, oh, okay, we'll give her her money back, then she would have gone out and she'd have been saying, that hypnosis doesn't work, and that place was just a scam, and yada, yada, yada. Now, if she says anything, she's got to say something good. So you've held their feet to the fire, made them have some skin in the game, and gotten an investment from them into the process. They have to be invested in the process, financially, emotionally, in terms of their time. That's why if somebody says to me, I really need a Saturday morning appointment, you're not going to get it with me. You need a Saturday morning appointment. You better get it with somebody. You're going to have to go somewhere else. I don't work weekends. So that investment is critically important. Now, the other thing is, if you don't get the money in advance, and we've talked about this before, you're much more likely to get stiff. If you set 2 hours aside for a new patient, they just decide not to show up, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Don't do it. If somebody says to me, I'd rather pay at the office here anyway, this is the instructions to the front desk. If somebody says they want to pay when they get here, well, that's fine, but we still need a valid credit card on file. We'll be charging $50 toward the program just to verify the card and to secure the appointment time for you, and you can pay either the whole thing or the balance when you come in. We can always refund your card $50 if you want to pay it all with a check.
Okay.
I very, very rarely, for a real emergency when it does happen, I rarely ever get stiff, because they've already got skin in the game. You know the only time I ever get stiffed? When it's a young adult whose parents are paying for the program. You'll get a kid who says, I don't care, nothing out of my pocket. And that just validates what I'm saying. That if they have skin in the game, they'll show up. I get paid either way. I set the time aside. I was here. I get paid.
What do you do with people that come in to change a habit, and you sell them the 3-session program, and they end up needing something in addition to that? For example, I had a client that we did the 3-session program, and this was a very cooperative, wonderful client. We actually ended up doing 5 sessions because we also ended up doing some Gestalt therapy and some regression. And in her case, it was fine. It was no problem. But with other people, I've noticed that they'll buy the 3-session program, but if anything else is needed after that, as far as they're concerned, they bought the 3-session program, and that should save the world, period.
Well, that's all in how you present it initially. Your initial presentation is going to set the tone for all of that.
Okay.
If you say to somebody, oh yeah, we can do that with a 3-session program, they're going to that's not concrete enough. There's too much ambiguity there. And this is why, if you look at our registration forms, everything is covered. The I's are dotted, the T's are crossed. Every eventuality that we could think of is included in there, because it keeps people friends. And when I say friends, you know what I mean. I don't mean friends with a patient or client. It keeps you on good terms.
Yeah.
So if a person says, well, I didn't agree to this or that, we just photocopy the agreement they signed and send it to them. Okay?
Yeah.
what was I going to say? I had a thought on that. And oh, the tone you set when somebody comes here, I do a brief consult. There's two ways I accept patients in here at the center. If they really know they just want to do it, they can just come in and do it. If they want to find out a little bit more about it, I'll do a brief consultation with them that they're charged $50 for. That $50 is applied to any program they select. But in either event, when I talk to them, I don't make them any promises. I say, look, this is a team effort. I'll do my part. But hypnosis isn't like in the movies where I hypnotize you, you're in some far out dimension with the eyeball, E equals MC square, Rod Serling standing in the corner, and you're in the Twilight Zone. It's a team effort. We'll come up with a strategy together. I'll be asking you a lot of questions, getting your input. We'll come up with a strategy together. I'll induce hypnosis. You'll allow yourself to go into hypnosis if you really want to make these changes. And then I'll implement the plan while you're in hypnosis. Most of the time, let's say a person came in with something that I thought could be resolved in 3 sessions most of the time. I'll tell them exactly that. Most of the time, 3 sessions is fine for what we're dealing with here. So I'm going to put you in a 3-session program. If by some chance we run into any complication that just isn't coming out in this consultation right now, because we're just having a brief consultation, maybe something else will come up, we can move you into an 8-session program, which is less expensive per session, and we'll just credit you the amount you've already paid to the 8-session program.
What if they only need 5 sessions instead of 8?
I don't make up new programs.
So it's either 3 sessions or 8?
It's either 3 or 8, or if 3 sessions goes by and they're pretty close, I might then say to them, you know what, I think we should do 1 more reinforcement. I want to see it back in 2 weeks. We're going to do a reinforcement in 2 weeks. Or whatever I think the best course of action is. And then this will be the fee for that 1 session. Unless you have other things you want to work on, and we'll just put you into something more cost effective for you.
How much of a, if you don't mind my asking, how much of a discount do you give people for an 8-session program?
Well, a 3-session program in this area, in this market now, and I actually, when the economy kind of hit the dumpster, I reduced my fees on a special. I made it a special, and I just never touched it after that. And when the economy comes round, if it ever does, you know, I'll bump it back up, or if I move to a different area that maybe has a higher average income, I'll put it back up. A lot of what your fees are going to have a great deal of where you set your fees is going to be in what the market will bear in your particular area. And a lot of people around here, even though it's an upper middle class area, got hammered pretty hard in the last couple of years when the economy tanked. A lot of people lost their jobs, a lot of businesses went out of business. So right now I charge $6.95 for a 3-session program, and I charge $9.95 for an 8-session program. So obviously it's more cost effective to go into the 8-session program, even if you want to do multiple things. Let's say somebody says, well, I want to do this and I want to do this. All right, well, this should take 3 sessions. this should take maybe another 3. We don't have a 6-session program, but it's going to be a lot cheaper to go into the 8-session program, and then you've got 2 more sessions if you need.
So if they get completely done, they've bought the 8-session program and they get completely done in 5 or 6 sessions, then do you just say, well, okay, these other sessions are available for later reinforcement, or?
No, I'll just say to them, you have 2 more sessions available to you. They're good for the next 12 months. We only hold them for a year. And if there's any changes in price, you would be adjusted to what that difference is. So if my fees went up, they might end up having to pay, let's say it went up $25 a session on average. They'd have to pay $25 a session for those remaining sessions. So it's adjusted according to my current fees.
Okay.
It's clearly stated that there are no refunds, that programs are not transferable. All sales are final on programs. But the fact of the matter is, if they only needed 6 sessions and they had an 8-session program, they still paid less than if they had done a 6-session and then paid for individual sessions.
That's true. Okay. That gives me some other ideas about, I of course don't charge what you charge by any means, because I haven't been doing this for 40 years, but I looked around to see what other hypnotherapists were charging and looked at the market. So I charge $120 an hour is what it comes out to. And I discount that a little bit for 3-session programs. I didn't put in an 8-session program, but it looks like that would be a good idea.
Yeah, I wouldn't charge by the hour, and I would never start somebody with a 1-session thing just because of what we talked about.
Yeah.
I set aside an hour, but a session is generally 50 minutes, and it states that right in the paperwork. The first time they're with me, I set aside 2 hours, probably actually be more like an hour and 45 minutes. All of that's clearly stated in the paperwork.
Okay. I'm using a version of your paperwork, but it may need updating somewhat.
Yeah. We're updating all the time. Every time we see a little tweak that needs to be added, we do it right away. And the fact that we have our forms online is really helpful, because updating it, we don't have to print a mess of stuff. We don't have to go back and change anything there. We just go on to the online form, do the edit, and there it is.
Okay, I can see where that would be very helpful. And then I could just email it to them and say, okay, here's the form, fill it out, bring it with you.
Well, if you're going to email it to them, send it as a PDF file so that they can't make changes in it easily. You can modify a PDF, but it's harder than a Word document. I would have them mail it back to you so you have it before they come in. Now, we don't have to do that. Our form, they go online, they fill out the form online, they click submit, and it appears in our computer.
Okay, well, so I don't have that type of computer program at this point.
I'm fortunate that Sal really catches on to that stuff quickly, because there is some level of programming and all involved.
Yeah.
But we bought the program and just did it in-house.
Okay, well, I only have me, myself, and I, and none of us is very good at that sort of thing.
Okay. Sometimes I get caught off guard by the client's lack of commitment to the process, especially when they have told me how much they need help, how committed they are, etc. Instead, I come to realize that the motivation was one of the following, see below. What are better questions I can ask up front to determine if the client is really committed to the process? If they aren't, at what point do I decide not to work with them at all? Well, I think the only time I would choose not to work with a patient at all is if there was just no commitment, no desire. Let's say they're only coming in because their wife's pissed at them for something, and I'll stop smoking, because if I don't, my wife's going to be on my butt all the time and my life is going to be miserable, so I'll give it a try. I tell them go home.
Okay.
If I get a call from a spouse, if, let's say, a wife calls me and says, I want to make an appointment for my husband, my first question is, why is he not calling? Does he really want to do this? I can help him if he wants to do it. I can't help him if he doesn't, but you want him to do it. And I'm very upfront about that.
Okay.
Okay, your first one on here that shows that your saying shows a lack of commitment or whatever. They want to prove to themselves that hypnosis will not work.
Yeah, that would be kind of the anger management lady that we talked about earlier. I think that was part of what she was trying to do, because she wanted control. So you know.
Play to her ego. I would just say to her, if you want to prove that this isn't going to work, you can do that. I think it would be to your benefit and it would be using better judgment if you would prove to yourself that your mind is strong enough to allow it to work. So either way, think you can, think you can't, either way you're right. I always let them pick. Pick which one you want. You're in charge. Tell her she's in charge. You know that you don't mean she's in charge of the session. She's in charge of making that choice. You get to pick.
Yeah, everything on this list refers to people that I talked about in the the long thing I sent to you last night. But when I wrote this, I was thinking to myself, this is an area where I've had some trouble keeping the feet to the fire. So I was kind of enumerating the things that I had run into here.
Okay.
To see, so that you see where.
What I want you to do is shift perception. I want you, when you have people like this in your chair, my perception always is, or my methodology is, can I help this person? My goal is to help this person. I will draw the line and send them home if I think that's not a possibility.
And if they're just not willing to commit, they're not willing to get into it.
And I don't have time to waste. If you look at it in this way, again, it's just an attitudinal shift. I've got people sitting in the reception area waiting. They want help. I'm not wasting my time with Joe Schmo who's going to give me a hard time. And I don't say it to him exactly that way, but I do say that to him. I'll say, when you made this appointment, you said you wanted X, Y, and Z. I'm not hearing that level of commitment right now. You committed to doing this or not? Because if you are, I'll help you. If you're not, I got people waiting to see me and that really do want help, and no point in us wasting our time. So you get to choose.
Okay. All right. This really is helping a lot to get that perspective on this. I can see where in some ways, I've been so anxious about just trying to earn some sort of an income that I have not, I've kind of let people get away with some stuff here.
But that's not going to earn you an income. What that's going to do, remember when we talked about rapport? Rapport doesn't mean that they like you. Rapport means that they respect you and they have faith in your ability. And if they can push you around, they're not going to respect you. I would rather lose an occasional patient because they walk out going, okay, if he doesn't want to have me as a patient, up his nose with a rubber hose. I mean, that doesn't hurt my feelings. I could care less. It's, if I can't do my job correctly, I'd rather not do it. In the end, it's going to get you more work for a couple of reasons. Number one, you're going to have people's respect, and they're going to know that you're a professional and you're conducting yourself in a professional way. The other reason you're going to get more people is you're going to have a greater success rate because you've established compliance completely. If they can push you around, that's going to cut their success rate at least in half, if not more, the chances of them being successful. And then you know what they're going to do? Instead of going out and saying, hey, this hypnosis worked really good. I stopped smoking after 3 sessions, or I lost weight, or I'm managing stress so much better now. Instead, they're going to go out and they're going to say, nah, that crap didn't work.
Yeah.
So word of mouth is great advertisement. You want them going out saying good stuff. So I would rather not take somebody on than risk them going out and saying bad stuff. This next one on the list is one and two. I think we kind of blended together there. A potential client wants to try it out without any commitment on their part. Not in my office, they don't. That ain't happening. I've told people who have called with similar requests like that, look, I'm interested in seeing you be successful. If you're not committed to your own success, I'm not going to be more invested in your life than you are. There's a lot of people that'll take your money and take one session. I won't do it because it's not the right thing to do. So if you want to see me, these are my office policies. They're not negotiable. And if not, a lot of people out there be happy to take your money, so I'm sure you'll find somebody. That's the same thing with fees. If people say, well, can't you work on a sliding scale, or can't you do this or that? My fees are not negotiable. These are my fees.
I've never done the sliding scale thing.
No, people will say, can I make payments on it? No, I have an agreement with the bank. I won't loan money if they don't do hypnotherapy.
I remember you saying that. I don't do the payments thing either.
Now, I tell people, look, if I start putting people on payment programs, it's too much effort and time, and I would have to charge more because there's more work involved for me. So I just don't do that.
Yeah.
When you have the money, give me a call. We'll get you on the calendar. And you know, if they get behind or don't pay you, you know who they're going to make the bad guy.
You. Yeah.
Okay, we kind of addressed to this as well in the first two. They've come to you to get someone else off their back, not because they intended to work on their problem. If they're sitting in my chair and I find out they only came in because somebody else pushed them to, they're out faster than they came in. Not going to see them.
That one, yeah.
I have pretty much 100% success rate, and I always tell people it's because I cheat. If I think somebody's not a good candidate and they're not committed, I won't see them.
Yeah. That one also refers to one of the cases I gave you later, the one that was kind of the druggie.
They become angry when you ask them a question about what is going on for them because it makes them think about it too much, and this is uncomfortable.
That was the lady that had a problem with cooking.
I just tell people I can only work with the truth. I need to know what's going on. If I'm working under a false premise or with a lack of knowledge about what the circumstances are, I can't do the job for you I'd like to. So I'm going to need to know this information. If you want to make the shift that you told me you want to make, I didn't make it up, you told me. If you truly want to do that, then you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet sometimes. So I'm going to need to ask those questions. And you know what? If you want to get angry, you can. I'll probably say things that'll piss you off a lot more than you are now.
Well, this lady came back and said, well, I wanted exactly what she said. I wanted you to sprinkle fairy dust powder on me and solve the problem.
I just said, do I look like Tinkerbell?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it says in the next sentence about that. Yeah, I guarantee you that's what would have come out of my mouth to her. Do I look like Tinkerbell? I can't do that. I'm a trained professional. I can help you do what you're asking me to do, but there is no fairy dust.
Yeah. I did tell her that, you know. Anyway, that lady had gone for every type of alternative therapy in town, which in Ann Arbor, there's a lot of people that do different alternative stuff. And all of the other ones were ones where she didn't have to do anything, you know, like it was acupuncture and all she had to do was lie there. But when she got to me, I started asking questions.
All right.
And
see, the thing with situations like that is, first thing I'll ask people if they say, well, I've been for this and I've been for that, I'll say, well, now you're here. So how'd that other stuff work for you? You're here. It obviously didn't resolve the situation. So you want to keep doing the same thing? That doesn't sound sensible to me.
yeah, it wasn't solving her problem, but I'm not sure she wanted to solve the problem.
Sometimes people do want to solve a problem, but they're afraid to take the steps necessary to do it. Those cases, you can kind of help them and motivate them to get them in the right frame of mind. The only time that in general, I mean, there's exceptions to every rule, but generally, the only time you're going to find somebody coming to you who really has no interest in changing is when somebody else forces them to come.
Okay. In the case of that, well, we'll get to that lady later, but
I had a patient just, well, I was seeing her for, I think she did, I can't remember if she did 1 or 2 8-session programs. I think it was 1. And after about the 3rd session, I said to her, I'm not convinced that you want to make change. I think you like being miserable. And she looked at me like, yes, I do. What are you talking about? I said, no, what I'm seeing here is you're so pissed at your husband that by acting out this behavior, you get to punish him and make him miserable, even though at the same time you're making yourself miserable. So until you come to grips with that, we're not going to move forward with that. So what we need to do is switch gears here. I'm not asking you to forgive your husband. You got to let go of the anger, because the only person that it's tough toxic to is you. And if you're willing to do that work, I'll continue on with it. Then we can accomplish this. But right now, you don't want to get better. And she thought about it, and she went along with what I suggested.
I think that's similar to the case of that particular lady. This is the lady that had the leaky gut syndrome and et cetera, that I sent you that case last night. But we haven't gotten to that yet. But
Now,
still.
how did you handle that?
Well, when she came for just the initial consultation, she told me how anxious she was about all of her health problems, and it seemed to be pretty serious, and she really seemed to want help. And so her issue was this cooking thing. So listening to her, what I thought I was
cooking thing. I'm not clear on that. What was the cooking?
She hated cooking. She absolutely hated cooking, and she needed to learn to like it, partly to recover her health. But what came out was it was about keeping her husband happy. That was, well, at least that was part of it. What I mistakenly thought that she wanted to get to the bottom of why she hated cooking so much, because it was such a central issue in her life. She'd always hated cooking. However, in retrospect, I realized that I was wrong. What she wanted me to do was basically wave a magic wand and brainwash her into liking cooking, if that makes sense to you. You know, she didn't want to deal with any of the issues in her life, the underlying issues that were related to her physical health problems or stuff going on in her marriage. She was really very reluctant to talk about her marriage. She just wanted me to wave a magic wand, you know, the fairy dust powder. And when she talked about that originally, she laughed. And so I thought that meant that she was kidding, you know, but I came to find out that she really meant that in a way.
Well, there's a couple things there, and again, I wasn't in on the whole intake, so I'm just gonna be commenting theoretically here.
Yeah.
You can't brainwash somebody with that, but number one, I'm not sure if that's the real issue, but let's assume it was. I might make a suggestion. I might say to her, look, I can't brainwash you to like cooking, but if your health is important to you, and if your husband's important to you, we can do this. I want you to tell me how you feel and put yourself in this mindset. You just cooked a meal. Your husband's really enjoying it. How do you feel? And when she might say happy, proud, whatever, I'll say, well, even though cooking may never be your favorite hobby, you feel really good. You told me you feel proud, you feel happy, you feel like you're a good wife. How about if every time you had to cook, your thoughts went right to that? And you got that same feeling, and even though you still may not be thrilled with the cooking, you're feeling really good about yourself. You'd like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we did work on, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You can give them a payoff, which is what you need to do. You don't necessarily have to help them like cooking all of a sudden, but you got to give them something to like.
Well, I did create suggestions with her and ask her an awful lot of questions to find what the payoff was, what's the reward. But as I talked about in that case, pretty much every question I asked her, I either got, I don't know, or I'm stuck.
When somebody says to me, I don't know, I look at them, I say, who should I ask?
Well, I did say to her, okay, well, if you don't know, you're the only person that knows the answer to this. I don't know the answer. You have to tell me.
Sometimes you got to put them back in that situation. I'll say, okay, I want you to just think back for a moment to the last time you were in this situation. Walk me through it. And then when they do, I say, okay, I want you to go back to that situation again. This time, I want you to walk me through the emotions that you're feeling. And oftentimes when you do that, you'll get a whole different answer. You just got to kind of reconnect them to it. Now, the other thing that goes through my mind with this is if she never liked cooking, her husband had to know she didn't like cooking when he met her.
I said that to her. She said, you know, I've been married for 35 years. I've hated cooking since I was a child. And I said, so your husband knows you hate cooking. So, you know, why is this such a big deal? He already knows that about you.
What'd she say?
What did she say? It was still something he normally would just go out to a restaurant or something and get something to eat. But the only thing that they did together in their marriage was to go out to eat together. They had, according to her, nothing else in common. And as I got her to talk.
Why is she so worried about cooking for him?
Well, I finally got her to talk a little bit about what was going on in her marriage. And it sounded like if dinner was not on the table on time, then the husband would start screaming and yelling and throwing things.
All right, well, see, we have a whole other set of issues there. Here's what I would offer her at that point. I would say to her, we all manifest in our lives what we feel we deserve. So obviously, you must feel like you deserve to be treated that way. I'd like to find out why you think it's okay to allow yourself to be treated that way. We teach people how to treat us. You taught him how to treat you that way. And you taught him that it was okay. I think we need to explore what your needs are to make you place greater value on yourself. That would be my suggestion for the best way that I could help you. If you just want to tolerate cooking, I can help you to better tolerate cooking because you'll feel safe and secure and less vulnerable if you cook a meal for your husband so he's not flinging things around the house and yelling. But that wouldn't be my choice. Is that really what you want? You really want to just be able to tolerate being treated poorly more easily?
Yeah.
And once again, it comes down to the same thing. And so you get to pick.
Yeah. This is not the first time I've seen a pattern like that in middle-aged women. You know, where they want to stay in a toxic relationship by brainwashing themselves to remain in denial about it or have no feelings about it or something like that. So anyway, I'm learning.
Yeah, when somebody doesn't want to talk about something, actually they really do want to talk about it. They just don't know if they should. And when somebody keeps going, changing topics, or if they keep going, if I ask them how they feel about something and instead they keep telling me what they think, I know they're hiding from their emotions. They don't want to deal with their emotions.
Yeah. I'm just taking some notes.
Yeah, so then I don't let them off the hook. If anything, I hold their feet to the fire more.
Well, I was working very hard to hold this lady's feet to the fire, but the result was that she just got very angry with me, and
That's okay. What do you
you
think
know,
about that?
well, so I was okay with her being angry with me, but I began to realize that she was becoming very uncompliant with what I was trying to do to help her. And she had talked a lot about being a rebel and whatever, but I concluded after the fact that she decided that I was the enemy because I was getting her to look at what was going on in her life, and she apparently didn't want to do that.
You've got to keep going back to look. I'm here to help you. You came to me for help. I can only work with the truth. If you're not willing to open up and discuss the reality of what's going on, then you're not going to get very far. I've even told people I'm not the enemy. I'm not the opposition. You came to me for help, and that's exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to help you. Now, I want you to take a breath and just rethink this. You came to me for help. Let me help you.
Okay. Well, that was a case that I think sort of blew up in my face. um, well, so Dr. Holder, I came to you for help.
All right.
I think after I, practice on Mary when she comes back from California, I may have some more questions, but I think I just need to practice it. And part of it is just getting used to what I'm doing with my body and their body. Like the ones where I'm, you know, putting one hand on their arm and the other hand here so that their head's going to go this way, or I need to just practice that more.
Start with your foundation, and by that I mean your seating position, your relative position to the other person. That's really important. And what a lot of people do, especially with those rapid and instant inductions, they start the induction and then they realize they're out of place and they can't reach this or they can't get to that, and it just throws their game off. So just make sure that you're in good position right from the start. Sort of anticipate what you're going to have to do and where you're going to have to be.
Well, I can see that, like I said last night, that one of the potential problems is the type of chair that I'm using. It's great for some types of inductions, but, like Elman, for example, but it's not so good for being able to get in front of them and closer to them and do the things you were doing last night, for example.
Yeah, all the chairs that I have, of course, not the one last night, that was just a folding chair from the back room, but all the chairs that I have fairly high backs. I'm gonna rotate this camera so you can see the other chairs that are in the office. I can't fit the whole thing on the screen, but you can kind of see that chair has a fairly high back. Could you see that okay?
Yeah, I could. If you were going to do an instant induction with someone, would you put them in that chair then?
No, I don't have to, because this chair, they're sitting up enough. Like right now, my feet are flat on the floor and I'm sitting pretty erect, but I can also make this go back.
Okay.
So this chair works for all of them.
Okay.
But if I had your situation, I would make sure I had another comfortable chair, preferably with as high a back as you can have on it, so that if you do want to set them back, they've got at least their shoulders supported, if not their head.
Yeah. Okay. I may have to do something different with my furniture.
Yeah, it sounds to me like at the very least simplest thing would be just to make sure you have a chair in there that other than your lounge chair, and some type of chair or folding chair or something that you can pull out for those instances for yourself. or when you get a chance, just just keep shopping around for a good recliner that suits your purposes. Doesn't have to be expensive, doesn't have to be big. Preferably no arms, which generally means getting a modular recliner from a couch.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do with the one that I have. I was trying to find something with no arms. I wasn't able to get a modular recliner separate from the rest of the whole couch system.
You usually have to go. I got lucky with this one. This is when I first saw this. Actually, my wife saw it, and she said, "You got to see this chair. I think it'll work perfect for you," because we were moving our office at the time, and I wanted to get a different chair. And I went down and looked at this and sat in it, and I thought, "Oh my God, this is wonderful. This is great." So I said, "Can I buy just this?" And they said, "Well, yeah, you can buy just that, but you'll have to order it. We can bring you one from the warehouse, but we can't separate the one here from the rest of the unit. So how long will it take?" And they said, "A couple of weeks, I think it was." I said, "Fine, no problem. Call me when it's in."
Okay. Well, maybe I need to go on another shopping trip.
Yeah, the other thing you can do is my last two recliners that I got by going to one of these furniture outlets where they had like leftovers and slightly flawed stuff and things that had been purchased at when stores went out of business or at auctions, where people just buy up this stuff real cheap, and that they're usually more flexible.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Well, that's another to do. Because I can see that, the Chase Lounge, people really like it, but it lacks flexibility as far as induction.
yeah. There's an old saying that only rich people can afford to buy cheap because they can afford to replace it. So it's always better to go the extra mile and get what you need initially, because it's going to last you a long time and save you a whole world of grief. So if you had to spend an extra $100 or something, it's better to bite the bullet and just do it.
Yeah. Those Chase Lounges weren't really all that expensive, but
yeah. You should be able to, if you went to one of those outlet places, you should be able to get a recliner for, $150 or something. It shouldn't be outrageous.
Yeah, the Chase Lounge was about maybe $200, maybe a little less.
Yeah, so you paid as much for that as if you went somewhere and just did a little more research and found yourself it might not, when you go to those places, you might not find the exact color you want, or it might not be quite exactly to your taste. But as long as it's not ugly as sin and it's functional, who cares?
Yeah, well, either that or just finding a regular, lazy boy type of a chair.
Then you got the arms on it, though, which can create just a distraction or annoyance. I
Yeah.
don't have any arms on the chair. I want that out of the way.
Okay, well, I'll do some more research on that one and see if I can find somebody who will sell me just the modular thing, just that piece of it.
Google for your area, just Google things like cheap furniture, factory warehouse, discount furniture, all of that type of stuff. And then look for places in your area that have that, seconds and slightly flawed.
Yeah. Okay. I added that to the list. I also added to the list of stuff I want to work on with you when I'm there. So, dealing with angry people. Anyway, I may have to just keep visiting you, you know, as time goes by.
That would be nice. That would be nice. I'd like that. All right, the next one I have, I think this is the next page. It says more questions. Is that the one with cancer patients and et cetera, et cetera? Is that your next one?
The next one was actually the one that says session 2, 9:45 a.m. And
Okay.
that one is about regression and also about regression and phobias.
Okay, let me make sure I'm on the right page here.
That one, the session 2 one is a 2-pager. And then the more questions, this is the one I did last night, is the 6-pager.
I'm not sure. I know I printed these all out. Hold on. 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay.
The ones with the page numbers are all the ones that are part of the more questions that I sent last night.
Okay, I've got those 6 right here, and then we just did the 2-pager, and then I've got a 1-pager here.
Okay, maybe I'm goofing here.
Yeah, we just did the.
Oh yeah, you're right. Okay, so the 1-pager is the session 2, which is regression and phobias.
Okay. I've had a lot of success with regression therapy, especially many clients who have asked for it exclusively. So far, I for past lives and clarify things. Okay, so let me just sort of put this first paragraph in a nutshell. You're asking how people can determine if in regression they're having a real memory or it's just their imagination. And in a case where they believe they've had encounters with aliens,
I was giving you examples of types of regression that I've done in the last couple of years. The question for topic 1 here, and you kind of covered this yesterday, I think, was, okay, so somebody goes back to a past life that was traumatic or whatever, and they're happy with that because it explains for them something going on now or whatever. You know, all these people were very happy with the regression. And the question that I had was, how could I have helped them to do more with this or get some sort of closure on it? Because I wanted to make sure that these people, especially the ones that went back to something that was frightening, did not have sort of an after effect of that, you know, that it was resolved somehow. You know, there were some people that went back into regression and remembered details of being captured by aliens, and they went deeply into hypnosis and they really believed it. So I thought at the time, okay, they went back and saw this, but how does this help them? You know, it confirms that what they thought was their imagination for them really was real, but what more can I do as a therapist to help them with this, if anything?
last night I think we talked about, and we can kind of connect this to something we did today, about the importance of doing a program, not a session, even if it's regression, because at the end of a regression, I'll generally say to a patient, okay, now you've had that experience. We need to really understand why that experience was significant, why your subconscious chose to take you there. It obviously has some significance, or it wasn't an accident you went there. And how can we use that information to enhance the quality of your life today? There's a purpose your subconscious mind went there. Let's explore that.
I'm just writing that down.
I might ask them, is there something in your life that you can connect that to? If they had a fearful experience in a regression or in a past life regression, I might say, can you imagine any way that that fear that you had then, that experience and the fear you felt, could be impacting your life today? Do you see anything in your life today that sort of rings a bell with a connection?
Okay. Okay.
It doesn't do any good to do a regression just as like a circus sideshow. Oh, that was really cool. Yeah, I experienced that, scared the poop out of me, but I had a past life experience. Now I know I had one. All right, so what?
Yeah, these were, some of these were present life regressions too. Most of them were.
It's the same thing. The format there makes no difference. You went back to that moment in time for a reason. When I asked your subconscious to take you back to the moment in time when you first took on the feeling, let's just use as an example, of unworthiness. This is where it took you. That's no accident. Let's find out how that information can benefit you today and help you to make changes in perception and relate to maybe some issues you're having today in a more productive way.
Okay, so let me make sure I got that. So let's find out how that information can help you today.
Can help your life, enhance the quality of your life today.
Yeah. Okay, that's very helpful. I felt like I just wasn't completing the process, but I wasn't quite sure where to go next.
When somebody asks, number one, when somebody asks for regression, especially if it's past life regression, I'm always much more detailed and adamant about not having a predetermined idea of where a problem came from or where they had this past experience. They have to be willing to say, okay, I'll just open up to all possibilities. I'm not gonna, I thought in the, that it might be the case where this and this happened, but I'm willing to let go of that. The other thing I like to do is find out a little bit about the history of the belief. And here's what I mean by that. If somebody over time, with nothing other than reading some books that say, well, if you have this kind of dream, it probably means that, or people have told this person, I think you are an old spirit, you must have lived before, or I bet your fear of this is in a past lifetime, and they've come to lock onto that belief, you've got to get them to let go of it. If a history if there's a history of cultivating a belief, the greater that history, the more chance of false memory syndrome.
Okay.
The most reliable regressions are when the person doesn't think that they're going to a past life. It hasn't ever come up. Or if it's in current life where you just say, let's go back in memory. You know, you don't forget anything. We have bad retrieval systems, not bad memories. So let's see if we can go back and find out when this problem started. And just leave it at that. You don't even have to say to them, I'm going to regress you.
Okay. The first person that ever came to me asking for past life regression was a couple of years ago, and it was a man in his 60s who said that his entire life he'd been afraid that he was about to die, and he didn't know why. And that some psychic or whatever, because there's a lot of people in Ann Arbor that are interested in psychics and all that, had told him that, oh, this goes back to some past life in ancient Egypt and whatever. So I said, well, I can't promise that you had a past life, and I can't promise you were ever in ancient Egypt, but what I can do for you is suggest to you under hypnosis that you go back to whatever memory will help you with the present. And he was very open to that. And he did not go back to ancient Egypt at all. He actually went back to being a fetus in his mother's womb. And it was a situation where somehow his subconscious mind recorded that his father, I guess, was one of these very violent, angry, alcoholic types who did not want children and was, hitting the mother, hoping that she would miscarry. That's what he picked up, which was very much of a surprise to both of us. It was nothing like the, psychics and these other fuzzy people were telling him. But when he came back from hypnosis, he said, a lot of pieces are falling into place now that I have gone back and seen this. A lot of things are making sense. So he was very happy.
Yeah, well, I think it's so funny that all of these people like the psychics you talk about, why is it always Egypt?
I don't know.
Sometimes it's Egypt. And
well, that same client called me recently and told me that he was sure that I'd been in ancient Egypt and that, he had been some, priest to King Tut or whatever. And I'm like, whatever, dude, but.
And you get those ideas planted, and I take it one step further than you do. I make it very clear to the person, if you want the outcome in your life that you've told me you want, you got to let go of all preconceived ideas.
Yeah.
I want you to just assume you know nothing, you've heard nothing, nobody's ever said anything to you, you're a clean slate.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, anyway, so this is very helpful as far as getting more therapy out of regression. So that's really good. I've been feeling like I've been missing something here, so this is good.
Oh, yeah. We have specific questions here about the phobias, fear of water.
Yeah, one of the books that AHU has is written by a DL named Irene Hickman called Mind Probe Analysis. And she talks a lot in that book about using regression to have someone go back to a memory that was difficult or a phobia or something and go back through it numerous times to desensitize themselves. But she doesn't really explain how she talks them through this, or how she does she bring them completely back out of hypnosis again and talk about it, or I don't know. But phobias anyway, I haven't really dealt a lot with phobias except for my current client who's the fear of vomiting, but I feel like this is I need to understand better, how do I deal with phobia when it comes up, because some people have talked about it. One lady wanted to deal with fear of needles, but she really didn't have the money to do therapy. It was all going to the hospital. So how do you deal with phobias?
Okay. In most cases, I don't think taking somebody back and repeatedly walking them through some traumatic experience is the best bet. You run the risk of making it worse.
Yeah.
And even though hypnotherapists are not medical practitioners, I think one thing holds true in any helping profession, and that's first do no harm. So if there's a significant risk of increasing the problem by doing that, even if there's a chance it would help, I'm not going to do it. And I think that desensitization is fine with things like OCD, but I don't see the application in this because there's too much risk.
Okay.
If a person has experienced something from the past, I don't care if it's early childhood or a past life or whatever it is, the more significant thing to do is to keep it in that time frame or to reassign significance. And what I mean by that is if someone, let's say, I'm thinking of a particular case where a fellow had been hung in a past lifetime as a criminal.
Okay.
Think about taking him back and rehanging him over and over and over and over again.
That would not be pleasant.
That would not be pleasant. It would not be helpful. But helping him to leave everything except the lessons he learned in that lifetime back in that time frame is helpful. Move forward with lessons learned. That was part of that past. It's not part of who you are today. If it's something from early childhood, it might be reframing it from a child's standpoint to something more palatable for the child other than a traumatic experience. When you're a little kid, things seem really significant to you that don't seem significant as an adult. And you can sort of do the same thing. I think I might have told you about that girl I took back whose mother was yelling at her, telling her she couldn't do anything right and she was stupid because she was making a big mess setting the table, and she was 2 years old.
Yeah, I've used that story.
So I just did exactly what I would do if I had a little girl sitting in this chair for therapy. I helped her let go of the guilt, help her let go of the idea that she was somehow stupid or incompetent. Instead, we focused on how proud she should be that at 2 years old, she wanted to help and set the table. What a great thing that you made that effort and wanted to do that to help your mother. So I did this, I just reframed it for her. And then I said, now I'm going to move you forward in time. You're going to leave all of the negative stuff behind, and you're going to bring that sense of pride and self-respect for being such a good little girl and wanting to help and be part of what was going on, wanting to help your mother, and that sense of pride is going to stay with you. And I brought her forward. That's a simplification of what I actually did, but that's in a nutshell what I did. So
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But you would use regression to find what the initiating experience was.
yeah, whatever the initiating factor is, I'm going to go back to that, and then I'm going to treat the child at that age. I'm not going to do the therapy with the adult. I'm going to do the therapy with whatever age that person is when I get there.
Okay. I'm just taking some notes. Okay, do the therapy at that age. Okay, that makes a lot more sense to me.
Yeah, I certainly don't want to traumatize somebody by making them relive being hung or beheaded or dying in a car accident or drowning or uh, that would make absolutely no sense, and it would be irresponsible, in my opinion, to do that.
Okay, yeah, all right, that makes a lot more sense to me. Okay, um, I think that kind of answers that question. So I guess if you're willing, we could start on my 6-page booklet here.
Well, there's a couple other things here I just want to make sure that I
Okay,
understand your questions on.
all right.
Um, do you go into regression therapy on the first visit to see what's at the bottom of a phobia? Usually not. On occasion I do. Um, I want to spend a lot of time, and I always tell new patients that come here, we may or may not get to hypnosis on the first session. You know, I front load everything. I want to make sure that we have a plan in place. I have all the data that I need. If we get to hypnosis, great. If we don't, we get it in the second session. Now, I don't know how long, if the intake goes rather quickly, and I think the person is really prepared for regression and that their head is in the right place and they're comfortable with it, I may. But the norm is that I will give them some direct and indirect suggestion to help whatever the problem they've come for, to help them get some relief, because that also enhances their belief system in hypnosis. When they go through a week and they've found some immediate relief, now their belief system is strengthened. And what the mind expects to happen usually does. So then we do the regression and they're a much better subject to it. But there are times I'll do it first.
Okay, enough people are nervous about, more nervous about doing regression than doing the type of hypnotherapy we do for suggestions. So,
Regression's far different, yeah.
yeah, it's very, very different. And they're, even doing the test drive, as you call it, it can be challenging to get people to just relax and see it as a movie or something like that. Just go there. So
it's all in your prep.
Yeah.
And you've got to prep them right before you do the regression. Even if I've already told them this stuff, right before the regression, I'll say, this is important that you remember. There's two things that will stop regression. Just like there's two things that will stop hypnosis. Do you remember what they are? They're fear and trying to go into hypnosis. With regression, it's fear and trying to remember. Because trying to remember is a critical thought process. What I need you to do is trust me on this and let go of any preconceived ideas about regression. What I want you to do is just allow any images, ideas, anything that drifts through your mind to just drift through your mind freely. Don't try to control it. Don't try to remember anything. If something does come to mind, I want you to just let it happen spontaneously and naturally. If you decide to go, oh, wow, I really would like to make this more clear. I'd really like to remember more about this. It's going to bring you right out of the regression. The opposite effect will occur. You have to just daydream, let anything that goes through your mind go through your mind. Your subconscious will likely follow my suggestion to the place where then you will give me information. But it's got to all happen spontaneously. You're going to do that for me, right? No trying to Remember, no trying to force anything, just let whatever comes come naturally.
Okay, I can see my prep in some cases has been a bit inadequate,
Right.
even though I've gone over it, but I haven't gone over it in as much detail and also right before I went into the induction.
The last thing, because people have a way of just reverting back to their old belief systems, I want that to be the last thing that I tell them before I say, okay, here we go. Can I induce hypnosis? I've got them in the right mindset at that moment. And as to this other question about do I bring them out of hypnosis completely, that's kind of a 50-50 thing. Sometime I'll bring them back and I'll just say, you'll stay in hypnosis, but I'll say I'm going to count from 1 to 3. When I reach the number 3, I'll snap my fingers. You'll stay in hypnosis, but you'll open your eyes and we're going to have a little chat. 1, 2, 3, eyes wide open. And then I'll explore it further there, maybe do some hypnoanalysis at that point. And then I'll just say sleep and go right back into their former state of hypnosis, and then I'll emerge them. Or I'll emerge them and I'll simply say to them, tell me about your experience. What was the most significant part of that to you?
I'm just writing.
That's fine. Take your time.
Got it.
All right. We probably have time for 1, maybe 2 more questions, depending on how lengthy they are, because I have a patient probably if they're not here, they'll be here soon. So, your first question on this next sheet is cancer patients and other serious illnesses. In general, how can you use hypnotherapy to help people deal with serious cancer? That is beside the pain management protocol. When doctors tell people they have cancer or whatever, when they get cancer, this is a waking hypnotic suggestion that may lead to the patient to create a disease state. What can be done in case of cancer patient? Okay. I can't control what other practitioners do. And part of their schooling for an MD is they're going to tell people the medical facts, which to some extent is good. In other respects, are sometimes better ways to phrase the same truth than they use. For instance, I would tend never to say to somebody, this is going to hurt for a moment. Instead, I would say, you might feel a pinch, but no big deal.
Yeah, that's very different.
If I suspected that something could be a predisposition to getting cancer, I might say to the person, this indicates the possibility that this could occur with you, so it's important that you take the steps to not let that happen. This isn't a done deal. it's something that you do have some control over, both with your attitude and thoughts and with the way you eat and the way you take care of yourself. So it's important that we keep you on track with that so you don't have to deal with any of the other.
Yeah.
And I do think that depending on the suggestibility of the person, if somebody says this is likely going to become cancer or this cancer is likely going to spread, if somebody's really highly suggestible, yeah, I think that can impact it. So you don't have any control over that, but what you can do is countermand. You can say to the person, look, the human mind has tremendous healing powers. You see it in pain management. You see it when somebody lifts a car off a kid that's trapped under a car. You see all type of things where humans exceed what would be normally expected. Stress is one of the things that depletes our immune system. Therefore, absence of stress, conversely, will enhance the immune system. So I want your attitude to be one that enhances health, not that depletes it. So we're going to work on that. And there's also, depending on the level of suggestibility of the person, and that is entirely up to you, how much you're willing to let yourself be open to suggestions and to go into hypnosis following my direction. There's some evidence to suggest that people who have had active cancers and other health issues have been able to reduce or completely eliminate a tumor just through meditation and through the power of their mind. Now, is that everybody? Of course not. But the more willing you are and open to that you are, the greater the chance that it will occur. So I'm being honest with them, but I'm not giving them a doomsday prophecy. I'm also giving them hope. And it's honestly, truthfully, factually hope that has both anecdotal and scientific evidence to support.
Yeah.
So why medical doctors often focus on just the negative? It's their training.
Yeah, I know that's their training.
I want to
But
get
I'm just
a positive state of mind where I might induce hypnosis and suggest to them, just like Pac-Man, the little guy go around eating stuff. I might suggest to them that I'm going to inject them, and of course I'll just do a little fake injection type thing, just maybe put my pen on their arm or something. Well, they're in hypnosis, and I'm injecting you with millions and millions of little Pac-Man creatures. And these creatures eat one thing and one thing only, active cancer cells.
I like that.
And they're going to work 24/7.
So you would just be creative about finding things for other serious illnesses that people could have, like, I don't know, diabetes or COPD or whatever, heart conditions, and so that at least subconsciously they were being more positive and less stressed and able to heal.
Yeah, yeah. See, we work within, every practitioner should work within their scope of knowledge and within the scope of what that particular modality is capable of. And sometimes you have to push the limits. You have to go a little bit out of your comfort zone, or you have to be a little creative. But as long as you know the principles and the foundation for what you're doing and you're being honest with your client or patient, go for it. Be creative. You're not dealing with the analytical, rational, logical mind. You're dealing with the subconscious.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, I know you've got to get going pretty soon. We have Sal set us up with some other appointments besides this one. And obviously, I still have a lot more stuff to ask you about.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it. But I don't want to rush through anything. I'd rather make sure I can give you everything that you need and really thoroughly answer your questions. I don't want to have to rush through questions. Yeah, probably going to need to, unless you have a quick question about anything we've gone over today. I mean, I'm happy to take that. We don't have a whole lot of time, but a couple of minutes.
Well, I think I'm just going to go through my notes and take a look at that. But I also think, as I sort of mentioned, that when I come out there and do my therapy personally with you, there are a couple of things that need to be addressed about dealing with people in a confident, assertive way and not being afraid of anger. Because I think that might help me be a better therapist and whatever. But, you know, we'll figure that out when I get there.
Can't be afraid of anything. And you really have to be detached from your client or patient. And I don't mean absent of empathy.
Right.
But you've got to have a really thick skin and not internalize your client's negative stuff. And it's almost like, to some extent, this might not be the best word to describe this, but it's almost a sense of apathy. That I'm not going to let that person's anger, frustration, that person's trash that they're carrying around, I'm not going to let it internalize and affect me. And if they get mad, I don't take it personally. It's just, okay, you get mad, you're just going to have to get glad again.
Well, my concern is that I think in some of these cases I have fallen into some countertransference and not really been cognizant of it at the time. Afterwards, was beginning to be. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. So I'm concerned about that. I don't want to get stuck in the oil in the tar pit here. I want to just get on with being a good therapist and learning all that I can, and anyway. But that's an oil slick we'll be dealing with when I come to visit you personally. Okay?
All right. Well, it has been a pleasure this morning.